When brave Sane, an Apache woman, is dragged to Franco's ranch, she expects to face a cruel man. But what she finds challenges all judgment, care, respect, and an unexpected romantic tension. Amid wounds, silences, and glances filled with meaning, they will both discover that true strength lies not in confrontation, but in the trust and bond that arise when danger and desire intertwine. The dust still hung in the air when Franco heard the horse stop. He looked up from the fence post just as he recognized the man dragging the woman. He dropped her onto the dry ground in front of the ranch. Sane did not scream, did not beg. She slowly got up, leaning on one elbow, defiant against the harshness of the world around her. Blood and dirt marked her arm, but her eyes shone with contained fury. Franco did not bother to give explanations. "Keep the animal," he said, as if speaking of a sick horse. "Don't touch her. I'll be back soon." Then he turned his mount and rode away with steady steps. Sane breathed heavily, assessing her surroundings. Her body trembled from exhaustion, but her spine remained straight, her jaw firm, reflecting pride and inner strength. She sought no compassion, only gauging the distance between herself and the lone man watching her from the fence. Franco stayed there, watching the heavy hammer in her hand. He knew she had not chosen this moment, nor invited the situation, but he clearly understood that if he left, Sane would not survive the night. The desolation of the desert spares neither the wounded nor the weak. The ranch was far enough from Dry Creek that the town's bustle would never fully reach it. On clear mornings, Franco could see the dust raised by carts, hear the faint clatter of wheels, and voices carried by the wind. At sunset, the world around his land belonged to the cattle, the creaking fences, and the long, patient silence of the San Pedro Valley. Franco had chosen this place for that very reason, an isolation that allowed him to live at his own pace. The ranch fed him, kept his hands busy, and asked no questions. In Dry Creek, the few who knew him described him as a quiet man who paid his bills on time, argued with no one, and never stayed longer than necessary. His face carried a permanent seriousness that unsettled strangers, but those who dealt with him long enough learned he was fair, meticulous, and reliable. He did not drink much, did not boast or explain his decisions. What he felt stayed behind his eyes. Sane knelt on the ground in front of Franco, her presence challenging the orderly calm of the ranch. She recognized him instantly, not only by his worn and dust-stained clothes, but by the firm way he held his body, even when hurt and exhausted. Her body trembled from fatigue, but the straightness of her spine and the tension in her jaw revealed a strength that admitted no fear, only a firm refusal to yield. Her gaze measured Franco without seeking pity. Ready for whatever came, Franco crouched a few steps down, enough not to invade her space. He observed the slight rise of her chest, the dark bloodstain on her forearm, the hand trembling despite her efforts to keep it steady. She had been dragged violently. He placed the hammer slowly on the ground. "You don't belong here," he finally said in a low voice, unused to speaking more than necessary. Sane looked at him, evaluating without replying. That absence of words awakened something unexpected in him, a silent, cautious curiosity. Silence often meant more than it seemed, strength, pride, or contained pain. The sun lowered, lengthening the shadows in the yard. Franco knew the desert night was relentless for a body already tired and wounded. For a moment, Franco weighed the risks he understood against those he did not. Finally, he nodded more to himself than to her. "You can stay," he said, "until you're strong enough to leave." He did not need to explain his decision. His silence was enough. He brought water first, moving with deliberate calm, just like handling a frightened horse. He placed the tin cup within Sane's reach and stepped back, keeping his body always slightly inclined, never over her. Her fingers trembled as she drank, and Franco felt a strange tightness in his chest. "Drink slowly," he said. It was not an order, only advice that Sane ignored, drinking anyway. She paused, gasping as pain reached every muscle. She sought no help or pity, waiting in silence for the discomfort to pass with a dignity that impressed him deeply. Inside the cabin, the air smelled of wood, leather, and old smoke. The place was simple. A table, a chair, a narrow bed against the wall. Nothing suggested company or welcome. Franco cleaned the table with a broad motion and placed what he had. Clean cloths, alcohol, a knife. Sané tensed at the sight of the blade. "It's for the cloth," said Franco, setting it aside. He studied her face, seeking something it did not offer. He found determination, distrust, and pride. The wound on her forearm was worse than it appeared, with deep scrapes and dried blood embedded in the skin. Franco worked carefully, firm hands, brief but precise touch. He did not apologize when Sané flinched, nor did he try to soften the pain with empty words. He cleaned, bandaged, and tied the cloth firmly enough to hold without hurting. "You fight hard," he said, unable to contain himself, his mouth curved hard and proud. He did not ask who had brought her. When finished, he stepped back, respecting her space. "Sleep if you can. I'll be outside." "Aren't you afraid I'll leave?" she asked. "If I wanted to, I would have already," he replied. No more words followed. When Franco turned, Sané spoke again, low and controlled. "You are not like him." She stopped in the doorway. "That's a low standard." "I didn't mean that." He waited, but she remained silent. Outside, the sky darkened to a deep blue. Franco fed the cattle, checked the fences, kept his hands busy while his thoughts returned to the cabin without inventing stories about her. He had learned that people came with problems and left when they could. The ranch was not made to hold anyone. Still, when night settled and the stars appeared cold and clear, he heard her breathing, first labored, then more regular. She murmured something in her language, a sound between warning and promise. Franco did not understand the words but grasped the tone. It was not fear, it was resolve. He sat on the step, hat low, eyes on the darkness of the valley. Thus began the real conflict, not with gunfire or shouting, but with a silent choice made without witnesses. He had not chosen Sané, but he had chosen not to walk away. For a man like Franco, that was never a small thing. Dawn came without ceremony. The sun rose pale over the San Pedro Valley, gradually lifting the night's cold as Franco already carried out his daily routines with quiet precision. If you don't want to miss our content, hit the like button and subscribe using the button below. Also, turn on the notification bell and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. We appreciate your support. Dawn brought with it a fresh air that swept across the ranch while Franco continued with his routine. Every movement was methodical, precise, as if life were measured in tasks completed rather than hours passing, observing the land with an almost instinctive attention. Sané remained at the cabin entrance, leaning slightly against the doorframe, watching as Franco tended to the cattle. Her bandaged arm did not prevent her from studying every gesture of the man, who, with silent determination, offered her protection and respect without words. When Franco left a bucket of fresh water near the corral, she approached cautiously. Each step was measured, but her gaze showed curiosity and a growing trust. For the first time, something warm began to arise between them, a silent understanding that needed no words. The valley breeze lifted the dust from the path as Sané watched Franco inspect the fences. His hands, firm and confident, handled tools with skill. Every small gesture conveyed strength, but also care, a combination that began to awaken something unknown within her. At noon, Franco sat under a tree to rest. Sané approached carrying a piece of bread she had made with flour she found in the cabin. Their eyes met, and for a moment they shared a silence that spoke more than any conversation. The sun beat down strongly, but the shade of the tree offered temporary refuge. Franco accepted the bread with a gesture that seemed more like gratitude than a simple act of courtesy. Watching him, Sané noticed there was more to the rugged man she had seen at first. Hours passed as Franco continued his work, checking fences and securing the cattle. Sané followed him at a distance, learning, observing, and every action he performed seemed to teach her something about patience, responsibility, and the calm of a man who sought no conflict. Mid-afternoon, Franco invited her to approach the barn. Sané hesitated for a moment, then moved carefully. He showed her how to secure one of the doors by adjusting rusty hinges. His proximity was measured, respectful, and Sané felt something soft and warm settle in her chest. As they worked together, Franco told her about life on the ranch, how every task had a purpose, and how patience was true strength. Sané listened attentively, absorbing every word, feeling that she was beginning to trust someone for the first time since her arrival. The sky began to tint orange and red as the sun neared the horizon. Franco and Sané sat in silence, watching the valley and the lights slowly change. Their hands brushed accidentally, and for a moment the tension became something deeper. Twilight brought an almost reverent silence. The animals rested, and the ranch seemed immersed in unusual calm. Franco looked at Sané and saw her expression had changed, showing a mix of curiosity, respect, and a spark of emotion that he began to recognize with surprise. Their first night together passed with a tranquility neither had expected. Franco kept an eye on the cattle, but also on the cabin, aware of Sané and her vulnerability, a protective feeling that surprised him and made him feel alive in a new way. As night fell, Franco approached the cabin with an oil lamp. Sané watched him from the door, feeling how his presence brought security. There were no words, only looks and subtle gestures that wove a silent, deep bond between them. As the night wind moved the valley grass, Franco showed Sané how to care for her injured arm using bandages and ointments. Every movement was firm, careful, with a touch that combined strength and delicacy, awakening in her a feeling she had never experienced before. Sané accepted the help without words. Her eyes reflected a growing trust. Franco noticed the way she leaned slightly toward him, and for the first time realized that his presence was not only necessary, but welcome. A tacit understanding had formed between them. The sounds of the night, crickets and animals, enveloped the ranch. Franco stayed close, vigilant. Sané, sitting on the cabin floor, felt the warmth of his company and a strange sensation, as if she were beginning to allow herself to rest and feel safe for the first time in a long while. On the second morning, Sané helped Franco feed the cattle. Their movements were naturally coordinated, as if they already shared a silent rhythm. Every shared glance conveyed respect and mutual curiosity, and the attraction that was forming was subtle, yet growing and inevitable. Franco watched her closely, noting how her posture and movements reflected pride and strength despite her recent injury. Sané, in turn, observed him, perceiving not only a protector but a man whose solitude held a depth that intrigued and attracted her. During the afternoon, Franco taught her to set a simple rabbit trap, explaining each step patiently. Sané learned quickly, focused, and efficient. Every small shared success strengthened their bond, and through exchanged glances and restrained smiles, they began to feel they were building something more than trust. When the sun began to lower, Franco and Sané returned to the yard, tired but satisfied. The tension of the previous days seemed to slowly dissipate, replaced by a silent feeling of camaraderie, respect, and a hint of affection that neither was ready to name yet. Night enveloped the ranch, and Franco lit a small fire for the cattle. Sané sat nearby, and as the fire crackled, they exchanged slow words about life and memories, beginning to share fragments of their personal stories, creating a closer bond. Franco noticed Sané laughing softly at some of his stories, and an unexpected warmth rose in his chest. The sensation was new, unsettling, and thrilling. She also felt that connection, a bond that went beyond survival, something that could be called hope and affection. Before the night grew deep, Franco secured the fences and checked the cattle one last time. Sané watched, impressed by his quiet dedication and contained strength. For the first time their solitude seemed shared, not a burden, but a bridge between them. At the last moment before sleep, Sané approached and placed a light blanket over Franco, an unexpected gesture he accepted with a slight nod. Neither spoke, but their eyes met, full of meaning, and a silent, romantic understanding began to bloom amid the desolation of the ranch. The night ended with the calm of the valley and the silent certainty that something was changing. Franco and Sané, physically separated by distance, were united in a tacit understanding, care, respect, and the beginning of a feeling that promised to grow with each shared dawn. The morning sun illuminated the ranch with unexpected warmth, gilding the grass and the fences. Franco worked on the farthest fence while Sané watched him, noticing the precision in his movements and the care he put into every detail. She decided to approach, offering her help without speaking a word. Franco accepted with a slight gesture, allowing her to accompany him. Every nail they hammered together seemed synchronized, creating a silent rhythm they both began to recognize as their own, reinforcing a growing connection between them. As Sané held the wood, Franco adjusted the bar carefully. Their hands brushed accidentally, causing a shared shiver. Neither spoke, but the air around them changed. The desert heat seemed to intensify the closeness they were beginning to feel, a discreet, romantic tension. Their work continued until noon, and Franco finally allowed Sané to take the lead on one of the tasks. He watched her, surprised by her skill and determination, and for a moment realized he was not only caring for her, but admiring her strength. When placing the last piece of the fence, Franco allowed himself a moment to look at Sané. Her face reflected effort and pride, and her eyes caught the sunlight, making Franco feel an unexpected desire to protect her beyond any obligation. They decided to rest under a nearby tree, sharing a comfortable silence. Sané watched the horizon while Franco prepared fresh water for both of them. Every gesture was filled with care, a dance of silent closeness that began to shape a genuine and deep affection between them. Sané offered a piece of bread she had saved, and Franco accepted it with gratitude. There were no unnecessary words. Their glances and gestures said more than any conversation. The attraction between them grew, an invisible thread beginning to tie their disparate worlds together. As they drank water, Franco noticed Sané leaning slightly toward him. The intention was not obvious, but his instinct told him there was mutual interest and a silent respect that was starting to transform into something deeper and more human. Returning to the ranch, Franco taught Sané how to inspect the condition of the fences, explaining each procedure patiently. She listened attentively, absorbing every instruction, her gaze a mix of admiration and curiosity, learning not only from his actions but from his character. The sky turned orange at the end of the afternoon, and Franco and Sané paused to contemplate the valley. The setting sunlight illuminated their faces, and for a moment they shared a silence that seemed to hold unspoken promises, a bond growing without haste. Sané then spoke of her childhood, her days with her tribe, and how she had learned to survive. Franco listened without interrupting, fascinated by her story and the resilience she displayed. Every word she spoke deepened the respect and affection he felt. The evening wind caressed their hair as Franco bent to pick up a fallen tool. Sané approached, without realizing it, and their hands touched again, causing a shared shiver that both acknowledged silently, aware that something more was happening between them. As night fell, Franco prepared a fire for the animals, and Sané sat nearby, watching the fire illuminate their faces. Words were few, but their exchanged glances conveyed an intimacy that began to build an emotional and romantic bond between them. Franco taught Sané how to tie a rope correctly to secure the cattle. Their hands brushed as they passed the rope, and both laughed softly. That moment of silent complicity opened the door to deeper emotions neither had expected. As the sky darkened, Franco shared stories of his life on the ranch, blending memories with advice. Sané listened, fascinated, noticing in every word the honesty and strength that defined the man before her, growing in admiration and affection. The night grew colder, and Franco offered Sané a light blanket. She accepted with a slight nod, and the touch of their hands as she took it was enough for both to feel a stronger bond, an invisible thread drawing them closer without words. The next day, Franco taught Sané to ride a horse correctly. Their bodies moved in sync as he guided the animal, and every shared moment increased their mutual trust, transforming the initial respect into a deep and silent affection they were beginning to recognize. Sané, in turn, began to show Franco how to move stealthily through the valley, how to read the tracks and signs of animals. Each lesson strengthened their complicity, and Franco could not help but feel moved by her intelligence and innate skill. The wind stirred the tall grass as they shared the afternoon watching the horizon. Franco noticed Sané tilting her head slightly toward him. A subtle gesture that said more than any word, a sign of trust and affection growing in the shared silence. At dusk, Franco checked the fences, and Sané accompanied him, helping secure each post. Their silent coordination and mutual attention to detail strengthened not only their working bond, but also their emotional connection, and a romantic link began to take root between them. During dinner, they shared simple food, bread and dried meat, but the true nourishment was the closeness that had developed. Their eyes met often, and though words were few, the emotional intimacy and shared affection was strongly felt. The fire crackled as Franco repaired a damaged post, and Sané watched, admiring his strength and care. In every gesture, she saw a man capable of protecting without imposing, of caring without demanding, and that respect awakened unexpected feelings in her. Franco noticed Sané following his movements closely, absorbing every detail. Their eyes met several times, and in that silent exchange, a mutual understanding was born, a bond mixing respect, admiration, and a hint of romantic desire that both were beginning to recognize. Before sleep, they sat together under a tree, watching the starlight reflected in the valley. The silence was not uncomfortable, but full of implicit promises, of quiet affection growing in the shared intimacy and newly discovered complicity between Franco and Sané. The night ended with the ranch at peace and a new feeling in the air. Franco and Sané, though physically separated in their small tasks, shared a tacit understanding. Trust and affection arose slowly, building an emotional and romantic bond destined to grow with each shared dawn. Dawn painted the valley with pink and golden hues, and Franco walked the ranch, checking each corral. Sané accompanied him, her steps steady despite her recent recovery. Every shared movement strengthened their mutual trust and the silent complicity emerging between them. As they worked, Sané mentioned details of life in her tribe, stories of her people, and survival lessons. Franco listened, fascinated, admiring not only her words but her strength. Amid her stories arose a respect blended with growing, silent affection. Franco showed her a place where the grass grew taller, ideal for the cattle. Sané leaned over the ground, examining every detail, and he watched her. The shared proximity and attention created a tangible bond, a thread of understanding and closeness that both felt. The midday heat forced them to seek shade under a large oak. Franco brought out water and shared a small piece of bread. Their hands touched while passing the food, and a shiver ran through both their bodies. Words were unnecessary. The connection was clear and silent. Sané taught Franco how to recognize animal tracks and signs in the soil, moving with agility and precision. Franco was amazed by her skill and the intensity of her gaze. Every gesture of hers awakened in him a mix of admiration and growing romantic desire. During their midday rest, Franco and Sané relaxed near the barn door. Franco noticed how the wind played with her hair and how her steady breathing reflected calm and strength. That silent closeness reinforced the attraction they were beginning to recognize without daring to name it. Upon waking, Franco taught her to handle the lasso more precisely. Their hands brushed each time they adjusted the rope, and they shared discreet smiles. Every small gesture was a silent conversation, a sign of the intimacy beginning to grow between them. The sky turned orange at the end of the afternoon, and Franco decided to take Sané to a small nearby river. The water sparkled under the setting sun, and every step they took together strengthened a silent complicity marked by subtle gestures and glances filled with affection. Sané watched as Franco crossed the river confidently, admiring his strength and serenity. He noticed her gaze, and when their eyes met, they spoke more than any words could. The connection between them deepened, blending respect, affection, and an emerging romantic desire that both felt growing. They sat on the riverbank, letting the water touch their feet. Franco offered her the light blanket, and as their hands touched, they shared a moment charged with silent tension. Neither conversation nor the sound of the river could compete with that sense of closeness. Sané began to tell stories of her days in the tribe, how she learned to ride and survive. Franco listened to every word with full attention and visible admiration. Each story deepened the understanding and affection he felt for her, strengthening the bond between them. On the way back to the ranch, Franco showed her secret paths and shortcuts through the pastures, teaching her to move safely. Their bodies drew close, unintentionally. their hands sometimes brushing by chance. Each accidental touch felt like a silent message, full of contained emotion and growing attraction. Upon arriving, the wind gently moved the grass, and they paused for a moment to contemplate the horizon. Franco watched as Sané leaned slightly on his arm and felt a surge of protection and desire. The physical closeness reinforced an emotional bond they had yet to speak of. The afternoon progressed as Franco repaired a damaged post, while Sané held the tools. Their coordinated gestures showed silent understanding and a connection that went beyond work. Through glances and discreet smiles, romantic attraction blended with respect and mutual admiration. Sané helped organize provisions for the animals. Franco watched, fascinated by her efficiency and strength. The way she worked with dignity and grace captivated him silently, and he felt his care for her transforming into something deeper, more intimate. The sun descended, casting long shadows across the ranch. Franco approached to adjust a wire and accidentally touched Sané's hand. Both felt a shared shiver. A silent spark that said more than any words. A sign of the growing attraction between them. As night fell, Franco lit a small fire, and Sané sat nearby. The warmth of the fire and the dancing light illuminated their faces as they shared dinner in silence. The complicity, respect, and latent attraction created an atmosphere charged with romantic emotion. Sané shared details of her customs and beliefs, and Franco listened attentively and respectfully. Every story awakened in him a sense of protection and affection, mixed with admiration for her strength. The emotional intimacy grew silently but intensely with every shared word and gesture. During the night, Franco checked the animals, while Sané watched him from the cabin. The moonlight illuminated his movements, and he felt his heart race, knowing she was observing him with attention and care, reinforcing the romantic bond between them. Upon returning, Sané shared a silent moment with Franco under the stars. Neither needed to speak. The air between them was charged with understanding and silent desire. The closeness, glances, and gestures had built an invisible bridge connecting their hearts. Franco taught Sané to prepare a temporary shelter for the animals in case of a storm. As they worked together, their hands brushed often, and every touch seemed to transmit a silent message of care, attraction, and affection that both were beginning to recognize and accept. The night advanced, and Franco showed Sané how to observe the sky to read the weather and predict changes. She listened attentively, fascinated by his knowledge and patience. The connection between them deepened, blending respect, learning, and a silent romance. At the end of the day, they sat in front of the extinguished fire, enjoying the shared silence. The ranch air was full of unspoken promises, and though no words were said, Franco and Sané felt the closeness and affection grow, each gesture laden with meaning. Before sleeping, Franco prepared the cabin for her, placing blankets and securing the space. Sané watched him gratefully, with a discreet smile. Daily intimacy and mutual care strengthened their bond, and the romantic connection budding between them solidified with every silent act. The night ended with the ranch calm, and both in their respective beds, yet with intertwined thoughts. The attraction, respect, and affection had grown without words. And as Franco watched over the animals, Sané felt a strong, silent bond connecting them, promising more shared moments. Dawn brought a fresh breeze that swept across the ranch, and Franco was already inspecting the fence. Sané appeared with the soft light on her face, her silhouette strong and graceful. Their shared routine was turning into a delicate game of glances and silent gestures. While feeding the cattle, Franco showed Sané how to assess the animals' health just by observing them. She imitated every movement, her hands brushing his unintentionally, and both felt the electricity arising from their closeness, a bond growing stronger with each day. The sun climbed higher, and the breeze stirred the pastures. Sané gathered Aino, and Franco watched every movement, appreciating her strength and grace. The mix of admiration and attraction intensified, and every prolonged glance seemed to hold unspoken words, silent promises between them. During the midday break, Franco led Sané to a hidden spring. The water reflected the sunlight, and they let the calm envelop them. Their hands touched as they drank, a brief contact but charged with tension, revealing emotions they had not yet dared to name. Sané taught Franco how to move stealthily among the bushes, avoiding dry branches. He watched her, fascinated, admiring her agility and confidence. Every instruction blended with physical closeness, their bodies sharing a silent language of respect and mutual attraction. On the way back to the ranch, a frightened horse bolted. Franco acted quickly, grabbing the reins, and Sané helped him, their hands united in the effort. The brief contact sparked a silent flame, and both felt the tension of the moment transform into intense, emotional connection. Franco showed her how to use the rope to guide the cattle. Sané mimicked his movements, her fingers brushing his with each correction. Every touch was a silent message, a reminder of the growing intimacy between them, blending affection, respect, and an emerging romance neither wanted to ignore. The sky turned warm with sunset hues, and Franco led Sané to the highest hill on the ranch. From there, they could see the valley stretching before them, and the shared silence was heavy with contained emotions, glances speaking louder than any words. Sané sat on the grass, leaning slightly against Franco. Their hands brushed as they looked at the horizon, and the physical closeness felt natural, inevitable. The romantic tension grew with every shared moment, and both understood that this bond went beyond simple friendship. As they descended the hill, Franco told stories of his childhood on the frontier, how he learned to work the land. Sané listened attentively, admiring his patience and strength. Each story brought their souls closer, and the silent affection became an invisible thread tying them together. That night, under a starry sky, Franco lit a fire to warm the cabin. Sané sat nearby, watching the play of light on his face. Their eyes met, and for an instant, time seemed to stop, leaving only the growing connection between them. When the fire went out, Franco prepared extra blankets and made sure Sané was comfortable. Their hands brushed as they exchanged the blanket, and a shared shiver ran through both their bodies. The intimacy grew silently, blending care, affection, and contained desire. Sané began to tell stories of her tribe, her ancestors, and her life before being captured. Franco listened intently, fascinated by the depth of her words. Each story strengthened the respect and affection he felt for her, creating an even deeper bond. The next day, Franco took her to inspect the ranch fence. Their bodies moved close naturally, hands touching while adjusting posts and wires. Every contact, every glance reinforced the silent understanding between them, and the latent romance was felt in every shared gesture. During their meal, they shared bread and dried meat. Franco watched Sané eat, noticing how her expression softened as she enjoyed the food. Every small detail stirred a growing tenderness in him, a mix of care and romantic affection he could not ignore. Midday brought a light storm. Franco and Sané sought shelter under a shed. The forced proximity left them just inches apart, their shoulders brushing as they organized the supplies. The air was charged with romantic tension, a shared moment neither wanted to break. After the storm, Franco taught Sané how to dry and care for clothes and blankets. Their hands brushed repeatedly, each touch a silent message of affection and desire. The daily routine transformed into an act of intimacy and emotional connection. As evening fell, Franco led her to the hill where they could watch the sun sink behind the mountains. Sané rested her hand on his, and a shared moment of silence sealed a silent promise, a mutual understanding that needed no words. During the night, Franco checked the animals while Sané watched him from the cabin. Moonlight illuminated his movements, and he felt his heart race, knowing she observed him with care and attention, reinforcing their romantic bond. Upon returning, Sané shared a silent moment with Franco under the stars. Neither needed to speak. The air was filled with understanding and silent desire. Their closeness, glances, and gestures had built an invisible bridge connecting their hearts deeply. Franco taught Sané to prepare a temporary shelter for the animals in case of a storm. As they worked together, their hands brushed often, each contact seeming to convey a silent message of care, attraction, and affection that both were beginning to recognize. The night advanced, and Franco showed her how to read the sky to predict weather changes. She listened intently, fascinated by his knowledge and patience. The connection between them deepened, blending respect, learning, and silent romance. At the end of the day, they sat before the extinguished fire, enjoying the shared silence. The ranch air was filled with unspoken promises, and though no words were said, Franco and Sané felt closeness and affection grow, each gesture laden with meaning. Before sleeping, Franco prepared the cabin for her, placing blankets and securing the space. Sané watched him gratefully with a discreet smile. Daily intimacy and mutual care strengthened their bond, and the romantic connection solidified with every silent act. The night ended with the ranch calm, both in their respective beds, yet with intertwined thoughts. The attraction, respect, and affection had grown without words. And as Franco watched over the animals, Sané felt a strong, silent bond connecting them, promising more shared moments. Dawn brought with it a distinct silence, charged with anticipation. Franco adjusted the fence wire while Sané watched from the shade of a tree, her eyes full of determination and curiosity. Both felt the calm before any storm that might arrive. A crow passed by cawing, breaking the stillness of the ranch. Sané smiled slightly, and Franco noticed the expression, feeling a silent connection between them. Every gesture, every movement carried a secret language, an intimacy growing through shared routines and silences. Franco decided to teach Sané how to use the rope to guide the cattle. Their hands brushed several times during the instruction, each touch a spark igniting contained emotions. They looked at each other with complicity, aware of what was arising between them. As the sun rose, Sané helped Franco repair a stable. The brushing of their bodies while moving beams and hammering boards created a subtle electricity. Their gazes met, and for a moment the world seemed to stop, leaving only their shared closeness. A warm wind swept through the valley, lifting dust and dry leaves. Franco stepped closer to support Sané as a gust threatened to make her lose balance. Their hands intertwined for a moment, enough for both to feel the latent romantic tension. During lunch, they shared bread and dried meat, while the shade of a tree protected them from the sun. Sané observed every gesture of Franco, noting the way he cared for everything and everyone. Her respect and affection for him grew silently, without words. After eating, Franco took her to a nearby river to teach her how to fish. Sané was fascinated by his patience and skill. Their hands touched as he passed her the rod, and both felt the physical contact turn into a silent message of affection. The sound of the water and birdsong created a perfect soundtrack. Franco and Sané worked together. Every coordinated gesture, every look loaded with emotion. The romantic tension grew without words, an invisible thread connecting them while they shared simple tasks. Upon returning to the ranch, Franco showed Sané how to repair fences damaged by animals. Their hands brushed frequently while adjusting nails and tightening wires. Every contact, every lingering glance was a silent reminder of the intimacy being built with care and respect. As evening fell, Franco took her to the hill where they could see the valley illuminated by golden light. Sané gently placed her hand on his, a brief gesture saying more than any words. The moment was charged with contained emotions. That night, as the wind swept across the ranch, Franco checked the animals, and Sané watched him from the cabin. Their eyes met in the darkness, and though there were no words, the connection between them felt intense and increasingly deep. During the early hours, a strange noise woke Franco. Sané followed, ready to act if necessary. Their bodies moved in sync, the physical closeness reinforcing their bond. The tension and mutual protection strengthened their complicity, blending care and silent romance. Dawn arrived with fresh, bright air. Franco and Sané worked together in the corrals, checking the cattle. Every gesture, every hand contact, every glance reinforced the intimacy between them. The daily routine had transformed into a game of closeness and affection. While repairing a barn, Sané moved closer to hold a beam while he nailed it. Their bodies brushing created a palpable tension. The physical closeness was a constant reminder of what they felt, a silent romance that needed no words. At midday, they shared lunch under the shade of a tree. Franco observed every gesture of Sané, her strength, her delicacy, and her patience. Every lingering glance and subtle smile increased the connection between them, weaving a deep bond of respect and affection. During the afternoon, Franco taught Sané how to handle the horse with more skill. Their hands brushed while guiding the saddle, each touch a silent message of attraction and trust. Their relationship grew with every shared activity. As night fell, they worked together in the cabin, repairing roofs and placing blankets. Their bodies moved naturally close to one another. The brushing of their hands and shoulders was a constant reminder of the closeness they shared, charged with romantic tension. Sané began to tell Franco stories of her childhood in the tribe, of life before being captured. He listened, fascinated, attentive to every detail, learning about her world and feeling his admiration transform into deep, silent affection. While the moon illuminated the ranch, Franco and Sané shared a silent moment, observing the animals and the starry sky. The intimacy grew without words. Every gesture, every glance, built a bond that transcended the ordinary and began to define itself as romance. At the end of the night, Franco left water and food for the animals, while Sané watched him from the cabin. Their hands brushed in a natural gesture, reinforcing the silent connection they shared, a mix of care, respect, and budding romantic affection. During the early hours, Franco checked the fences and corrals again. Sané accompanied him, walking close, their bodies in constant proximity. The routine, filled with work and mutual care, reinforced the intimacy and the romantic bond growing silently and naturally between them. Dawn brought light over the valley, and they walked together to check the animals. Their hands brushed while passing tools and adjusting fences. Every contact was a wordless message, and the closeness transformed into a deep and romantic complicity. At midday, Franco taught Sané how to prepare medicine for the animals. Their hands touched while holding bottles and bandages. The physical proximity, mixed with care and learning, intensified the romantic tension between them, letting each gesture convey what they could not say. In the afternoon, a dog escaped from the corral, and both ran after it. Their bodies brushed as they caught it, and the shared laughter became a catalyst for emotions. The physical closeness and mutual affection felt intense, filling the air with romance. At sunset, they sat on the hill overlooking the ranch, watching the sun disappear behind the horizon. Sané rested her head on Franco's shoulder for a moment, and he held her gently. The shared silence was charged with intimacy and affection. That night, as the fire died down, they sat together, sharing soft words and meaningful glances. The daily routine, mutual care, and physical closeness had woven a strong romantic and deep bond, consolidating their connection on the ranch. Before sleeping, Franco prepared the cabin for both of them. Sané watched him with gratitude and a discreet smile. The bond they shared, a mix of care, respect, and attraction, had transformed into something solid and silent, promising they would face any challenge together. The sun began to rise, illuminating the ranch with a golden light that promised a decisive day. Franco adjusted the horse's strap while Sané watched from the cabin, her heart beating with anticipation, aware that something important was about to happen. From the distance, silhouettes emerged against the morning light. 3 figures advanced confidently across the terrain, moving with familiarity. San immediately recognized her brother Chiton and the others, her body tense but relieved at the presence of familiar faces. Franco stood beside Sané, maintaining his steady posture. The physical closeness was comforting and silent. They shared an unspoken understanding: protect Sané, remain calm, and ensure that the encounter with her people happened without conflict. Chiton approached, evaluating the terrain and observing the cabin. His eyes stopped on Sané, acknowledging the care Franco had provided. The mutual respect between them was evident in the way Chiton briefly nodded, without words. Jocona, Sané's father, advanced with firm steps. His presence commanded authority and serenity at the same time. His eyes rested on Franco, a silent acknowledgement of the protection and refuge he had given his daughter without the need for explanation. The air was filled with tension and relief simultaneously. Sané remained firm, her bandaged arm resting by her side. Every measured movement, every breath carried strength and determination. She knew that her time with Franco had been meaningful, and that bond would not disappear with the separation. Franco stepped forward, letting Sané reunite with her family. The distance between them felt like an invisible thread that tied them together, reinforcing mutual respect and admiration. Their eyes met one last time, charged with unspoken emotions. Jocona spoke with a firm but calm voice. His tone conveyed security and gratitude. He recognized Franco's care without grandiose words. Every gesture, every nod, was a silent acknowledgement that reinforced the integrity and honor shared between the men. Shaitan called Sané to adjust her saddle. The brief contact with Franco was a reminder of what they had shared: work, care, and silent affection. Both knew the separation would be temporary, but the bond would remain, unseen yet solid. The group advanced slowly toward the horizon. Franco watched as Sané's figure moved away, her posture upright and confident. The distance did not diminish the emotional connection. Every step she took was full of recognition and respect for him. Sané turned once, looking back at him from afar. Her gaze contained gratitude and an affection that transcended words. Franco tilted his head gently, sending a silent signal of understanding. Both understood that their paths had crossed irreversibly. The sun climbed higher, bathing the valley in warm light. The ranch animals moved slowly, aware of the calm that followed conflict. Franco took a deep breath, feeling a silent relief and a peace he had not experienced in a long time. While preparing the cabin, Franco remembered the days shared with Sané: laughter, work, care, glances filled with tension and romance. Every memory reinforced the certainty that what they had experienced was no coincidence, that their bond was meant to endure, even if temporarily separated. The afternoon arrived with a calm, gentle air. Franco walked through the corrals, adjusting fences and checking the animals, but every movement carried the echo of Sané, of her presence, and of the silent affection that had grown between them during days of mutual care. That night, Franco lit a fire in front of the cabin. The flames illuminated his features, reflecting his concentration, and contained nostalgia. He thought of Sané, of her strength, resilience, and the silent romance that had emerged amid adversity. The night wind carried the sounds of the ranch and valley. Franco listened attentively to every creak, every breath of the animals, while his mind replayed the deep connection with Sané. The tranquility was a gift, but also a reminder of the moment's fleeting nature. Sané returned to the ranch days later, riding alone. Franco saw her appear from the hill, his heart racing. The morning light highlighted her confident posture and the strength contained in every movement. The absence had only intensified the anticipation of their reunion. When they met, there were no immediate words, only a gesture. Franco extended his hand, and Sané took it gently. The contact conveyed everything they needed to say, a silent, mature romance born of respect, gratitude, and the intimacy shared during days of mutual care. The reunion became part of their daily routine, working together, sharing tasks, and caring for the animals. The physical closeness and complicity blended with glances full of affection. Every action, every gesture consolidated a deep bond that could no longer be ignored. Franco taught Sané to better care for the livestock and to read the movements of the valley. Their hands brushed frequently, naturally, and without discomfort. Every touch reinforced the romantic intimacy, a secret language only they understood, made of respect and contained desire. The sun set behind the mountains, and they sat on the hill, watching the ranch in the valley. Their shoulders brushed lightly, sharing the warmth of closeness. The tranquility of the sunset served as the perfect frame for a silent and powerful romance. Sané told Franco stories of her childhood and life in her tribe. Franco listened attentively, fascinated. The connection between them deepened. It was not just romance, but a mutual understanding of different worlds they had learned to respect and value. As night fell, they shared words and silences by the fire. The flames illuminated their faces, and the intimacy grew without verbal expression. Every glance and every gesture confirmed that their bond was stronger than any distance or danger. In the end, Franco and Sané remained together, the ranch bearing witness to their mutual respect, affection, and budding love. The story required no further words. The romance blossomed in calm, routine, and the certainty that they would face any future challenge together.